Welcome, friends, to episode 4 of the Missing Pieces podcast. I'm glad to have you along with me here today. If this is the first time you've ever tuned in to Missing Pieces, this is the podcast where I talk about life and Lego, mostly life. And I think that's what makes this special, at least to me. And I've noticed through the comments that I've gotten from you guys that you seem to really enjoy these episodes. And I've gotten a lot of positivity and encouragement from this. And my encouragement going out to you guys, too. I hope that in listening to these episodes, maybe you can get something from this as a way to think about your life, think differently, and maybe inspire you to do something amazing. And that's what I've been seeing so far. And we're going to continue along with that today. I got a topic to talk about today that I'm really excited about. This is actually inspired by a fan that wrote a question for the Breaking It Down with Brickitect, I was going to say podcast, but no, that is just a simple YouTube video. This is way more than that, my friends. And I felt like this question needed answered in a bigger way than just through saying a one-sentence reply. The question was from Lightside Kylo, and I paraphrased his question, her question here, to make it a little bit simpler and to answer what I'm hoping to put out there today. Maybe you can think about this too. It was, what advice would you give your younger self? And I thought that is such a fantastic question, and one that I just really wanted to get into, obviously. And I did just that. I sat down, and this is actually kind of an emotional experience for me. I'm hoping that I don't get emotional on this podcast, because that's the last thing we need is any more crying Greg. But yeah, it really got me thinking about my life in the past and things I would do differently, mistakes that I've made. And what I hope in sharing this with you, this is going to be a very personal podcast. I hope maybe if you're at one of these ages that I'm going to throw out here, like I have all the way from when I was Clark's age all the way up until now, and some of the things I would do differently or advice that I give myself. Maybe if you're at one of those ages, you can use my advice to help you in your life and maybe make or avoid making a mistake that I've made. Or maybe you'll just think about where you're at and where you've been and maybe give yourself some advice and things to think about. So I want to get into this, but before we do that, I should announce that this podcast is once again available not only on YouTube, where most of you are watching it, but also on pretty much every other podcasting platform that I can think of that I didn't even know existed. In fact, just this week, I got an email from Anchor saying that it's available on Breaker. So if Breaker is a podcasting platform you use and you've been holding out for that, it's available there. I think we're pretty much everywhere else. But if we're missing your podcasting platform, let me know. And again, this is one of those podcasts where I encourage you to maybe work on something while you're listening to this, or multitask. Maybe you're going to school. I just think it's nice to have a resource where you can hear my voice and maybe be doing something productive in your life. Or you can just sit and stare at me, which is totally fine. Makes me a little uncomfortable, but if that's what you want to do, I'm totally fine with that. So with that all out of the way, let's get into this here. What advice would I give my younger self? This is coming from 34-year-old Greg. I should put this in perspective for some of you guys. I'm a little bit older than some of you that are watching. I know we're all over 13 here, but I'm 34 years old. I was born December 28th, 1984. So when I tell you the years, you're going to have an idea of when that was at a point in time, especially when we get to when I'm in my 20s, because that's going to be very important, especially when it comes to YouTube. But let's start at the beginning. I classified my whole childhood as ages 4 through 12. I thought, let's go back to when I was Clark's age. What would I tell myself when I was 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 12? And this is what I tell myself. I actually have a lot of notes here, so I'm going to be mostly reading from this, but I hope to make this an enjoyable process for you. So my advice to myself when I was 4 to 12 was that I should enjoy this time of no worries or concerns. You will never experience this feeling again. And I know all you guys that are older than that, maybe even that age, depending on what kind of life you've had, a life where you have no worries or concerns is one that I think a lot of us dream of. And I think that is why I love Lego so much. Look at that. We're going to talk about Lego a little bit. I love Lego as an adult because it takes me back to this point in time in my childhood where it was just a complete freedom. All I did was just build and enjoy it. There was no worries. There was no stressors. All the things that come with life, I didn't have any of those then. And my goal in collecting Lego and sharing with Clark is to somehow go back to that time in my mind. And that's my advice I give myself. Just really appreciate this time. Of course, talking to a 5-year-old, like if I say this to Clark right now, he's not going to appreciate it. Like, you don't know what it means until later in life. But man, just to go back to that time would be fantastic. But you can't live in the past. You got to live in the present. And, I should say that I'm going to be sharing some of the things that you guys have advice for yourselves as well. And I believe that was one that we got in there. So live in the moment, I guess, is what you'd want to tell yourself when you're that age. But things change, though. Things change a lot when you get to be a teenager. And I'm sure many of you know that. Many of you experience this. But when you go into like junior high or middle school, that's when outside forces start coming in on you. You start to want to fit in. You start thinking you need to wear a certain type of clothes. You need to be like your other friends. You maybe need to give up Lego because it's a kid's thing and you don't play with toys anymore because you're 13 and you're grown up. But my advice to myself at 13 years old is don't worry about what others think of you. Do what makes you happy and be you. Because the truth is, and I know there's a lot of teenagers watching this, let's just be honest here. All the things that you think are very important to you right now in your day-to-day activities, whatever it is, it's so unimportant. The person you're trying to impress, the friends you're trying to make, although friends are important, down the line, once you guys all go to college, none of this is going to matter. Just do what makes you happy. Whatever that is, whether it's Lego, whatever. Just be happy with who you are. Don't feel like you have to impress anybody else. Don't feel like you need to change to conform to what everyone else thinks you should be. Whether that's your friends, society, your parents, it doesn't matter. Be you. That's the most important thing. And the life of regrets comes from not living an authentic life. And that's where you're going when you're 13 years old. You're definitely not living that authentic life. So try to do that. I know it's going to be hard, but try to be you. So that kind of takes us to more teenage years, I suppose. After that, next pivotal moment, I suppose, I have 16 years old. It's when I got my first job. And, well, I don't really regret it because it did teach me a lot of responsibility. But my advice to myself kind of says differently, and this is very honest. This says, don't get a job just yet. You're living at home for free and have no bills. Spend this time with your friends because in a few years, you will all be going different directions. The memories you make will last much longer than the minimum wages that you're wasting on video games, CDs, and clothes. And that, again, dates me to, I guess this would have been 2000, 2001, in that range. The time. You'll see throughout this whole podcast that time is such an important thing to me. And appreciating it and going back in time to try to change things isn't something you can do. But if you're this age, again, it's important to have a job, I suppose, and to learn from that, but the time is so important. You're never going to be 16 again. So don't worry about needing money to buy that cell phone or whatever things you young kids are into these days, you whippersnappers. Take this time with your friends because you're never going to get this back again. And I'm learning that throughout my entire page here. You're never going to get this time back. So whatever you do, no matter what advice that I give you throughout this or advice for myself, this isn't for you, this is for me. But again, maybe you can learn from this. Appreciate the time. So that's what I give myself at 16 years old. But then when we move to 18, you finally become an adult somewhat. At least you're legally an adult. Mentally, maybe not so much. And I definitely know at 18, I wasn't nearly as mature as I am now, and I've learned a lot since then. And I've grown a lot since then, and you will too. My advice at 18 years old is go to college for the thing you love and not the thing that you think will get you a job. One sentence. And to give you some more context in that, I thought I would elaborate on these things. I went to school for business administration because I was interested in finance. I was interested in money. I developed this obsession over that after reading this book called Your Life or Your Money, or Your Money or Your Life. It's been a long time since I read it. I read that book and it changed every way that I thought about money, and it became something that I was really interested in. And that kind of was like, okay, maybe I'm interested in finance, so I'll go to school for that. And I did. But there was something else that I should have went to school for, something that I really loved, but I didn't think would make any money and I wouldn't be able to get a job in it, so I didn't do it. And that thing is graphic design. I wanted to become a graphic designer. My childhood, first of all, I wanted to be a Lego designer when I was a kid. Then I wanted to be an architect, but I learned about how much education and all of the things you need to do to become an architect and how long of a process it is, so I kind of ruled that out. But then I want to be a graphic designer, and I thought, with my artistic abilities, I think I could do that. In fact, you guys probably don't know this, and I don't know if I ever shared this or not, but I was voted most artistic of my senior class. When people vote like most likely to succeed, most beautiful. I didn't get that one, but I got most artistic. And you know what I did with that? Nothing, because I didn't see a path for financial success from it. And I have massive regrets for that, because nowadays, I do make money from my art. If you consider these videos art, some would consider them not to be that. But there's something that I would use every single day that I make a video that would be very helpful, and that's graphic design. If I learned Photoshop, if I learned all this stuff and how to do that, could have been wildly valuable to me. I just didn't see it at the time. And had I went into that, there's a good chance with my talent, with my tenacity, I probably would have gotten a job in that, but I didn't believe in myself at the time. So maybe my 18-year-old self, I would say, believe in yourself. And I would say this to myself throughout all these years, even my adult years, even today when I second guess things. Believe in yourself. Things will work out. Follow your destiny, follow your passion. All these episodes are going to stack. And I promise eventually we'll get into talking about more Lego, but I feel like these are important. And I was just super inspired by this question that I got. So 18-year-old Greg, follow your passion, go to school for graphic design. Even if you don't get a job, at least you did something you really loved. And who knows what kind of good would have come from that. I'm going to fast forward through my college years because I took that other path and it ended up panning out for me. Things worked out in some ways they didn't. But we're going to fast forward to 22. This is a big year for me. I'm 22 years old, getting out of college, just like all the other kids are. And my advice to myself at 22 years old is focus on getting a job that you truly find interesting. Don't settle for the one that is willing to hire you. I remember thinking to myself when I got my job in finance, which is the thing that I went to school for. I got a job doing personal loans for people, mortgages, retail financing, that kind of stuff. And throughout my time in college, I thought that's what I wanted to do. But I knew when I interviewed at this job, I was like, this isn't it. This isn't what I want to do. But jobs were hard to come by in 2008. It was 2008. I was trying to think of the years. There was a financial crisis happening at the time, and jobs weren't easy to come by. And I was very lucky to get hired in my area, in my level of expertise, which would have been finance. I got everything worked out on paper, but it wasn't my true self. It was the thing that I thought I wanted to be. And I took this job, and I stayed at that job for 9 years. 9 years of my life I spent doing that. 9 years of doing something that you don't find passion in, but you did it because it was an opportunity, and then you become complacent, and then the money starts coming, and then you start buying things, you start paying off debt, you start coming up with bigger goals, and you find yourself there. And that's kind of what happened to me. I don't regret it because it was a life experience, and I feel like everything that I've done have led me to today. And maybe all this advice I'm giving myself, if I had followed any of these different pieces of advice, it could have had a complete change in the space-time continuum, and I wouldn't have ended up where I am today and who I am today, which I do love myself, which is a weird thing to say, but I do love who I am. There's definitely some things that I would change, and maybe we can save that for a future episode. But everything happens for a reason. It's just, if you could go back, sometimes you do wish you made different changes. And I'm not going to give myself any advice like, at 22, you know what I should have done? I should have invested in Amazon and Apple, because right now I'd be a millionaire and I wouldn't have to worry about anything. No, I'm giving realistic advice here. I have a couple other things for 22 years old. Live at home as long as possible. This will be the last time in your life that you won't have any bills. Don't think freedom of having your own place is worth the cost. So everybody, I think a lot of kids can relate to this when you either get out of college or you go to college. I was lucky enough that I lived close enough to my college that I commuted. But I think every kid wants to go out on his own or her own and live this adventurous life without their parents. And I'm telling you, and I've given this advice to people, live at home as long as you possibly can, because your parents, they're paying for your life. Like, I didn't have any bills. I was on my parents' car insurance policy. I literally, the only money that I had to spend was money that on things that I wanted to do something. Gosh, I would like to go back to that life. You know how nice that is? Not to have all the worries that come with maintaining your life and trying not to be homeless and starving to death and all the other things that come with being an adult. Try to take advantage of that as long as you can, especially if your parents are willing to keep you. Because I remember telling my parents I was moving out, and I feel like my mom was like about ready to cry. It was like, no, don't. But, eventually little bird has to fly his wings, and that's what I did. But I would have probably stayed home for maybe another year and cashed in. I think I did stay at home the first year of having my job, and I think I saved, I want to say like $15,000 that year. So that was a good start, but I could have done more. Another thing at 22 years old, and you guys probably already guessed this, most importantly, start a YouTube channel now. Share your journey with the world. You will someday make a living sharing your life with the world, and it'll give you a huge head start on that path. There you go. That's probably the biggest thing that I would change. I would be like, dude, here's a video camera. Here's the best camera that I could find. Go do something with it and put it on YouTube. Because that was the days, like if I would have started in 2006 or back when it started, you could literally upload anything. If I made the videos that I made today, back then, people would have thought I was like the Casey Neistat of YouTube, basically. because it was garbage back then. Garbage quality, garbage everything. And it would have been a great thing to get in on the ground floor instead of, I think I got in like 5 or 6 years late or later. It wasn't too late. It's never too late if you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel, but it would have been great to be in then. So that takes me through like my early 20s. And the next big landmark event that I can think of that I had was when we bought our house. I was 27 years old. We had rented for a few years. And we were like, yeah, let's get a house. Someone gave us a lead on one, and we went to look at it. It was the only house that we looked at. We didn't really shop around at all. We went through it, and we wanted it. It was this cute little log home. And if you follow the early days of Greg's World, or 19 Ridge Road, as it was called, you would have seen this place. And my advice to myself is don't buy your first home yet. You're probably shocked by that, but man, a lot comes with buying a home, a lot of expenses, and we bought a house that needed a lot of work done to it, and we really didn't realize the cost of it. So I said, instead, keep paying rent, pay off your student loan debt. Responsible Greg, even back at 27. Save money, but use the next few years to travel and have life experiences with your wife. That I wish I would have done, because I was in the mindset for a very long time that my number one goal is to get out of debt, save as much money as we can, live as inexpensively as we can, and get rid of this debt load, because I felt like that was the thing that was keeping me stuck at my job, and I wanted to desperately make a change. But when you do that, you sacrifice other things. I wish I would have went on all kinds of vacations with Cody or Mrs. Brickitect, whatever you know her as, depending what channel you come from. I wish I would have done more stuff with her, because that was a time we didn't have Clark Man, and it would have been nice to like enjoy that freedom that we had, because now, like, once you have a little dude, as much fun as that is, it's hard to leave your 1-year-old to go on a vacation in the Caribbean, right? So I wish we would have done more then and really enjoyed that time and appreciated it. Again, the message here is that you don't really appreciate things until it's too late, and I'm finding that out in every aspect of my life throughout my years. So we're going to go now to 29 years old, 2 years later, and this is the one that got me a little bit earlier. 29 years old. Build a relationship with your dad and spend as much time with him as possible. This is the last year you'll have together. Tell him everything that you ever wanted to say before it's too late. And I think some of you probably know the story, but my dad passed away with cancer. We found out actually about 5 years ago now. We found out in October 2014, and by March of 2015, he passed away from that. It was just a shock to see that happen so quickly, and it was around this time that it was such a magical time for us, because Clark Man was on his way then, and he came in January, but March, my dad literally had 2 months to see Clark, and that's tough. But the big thing that I would give advice to myself is to really take advantage of that time. Me and my dad didn't have like a super close relationship growing up. He didn't do a whole lot of stuff with me. Like, he was kind of like a workaholic type. Like, we didn't do Lego together, and I'm trying my life to correct all the things that my dad didn't do with me. But I was mature enough at 29 years old that we could have bonded then, spent a lot of time together, and really just kind of sealed our relationship up before he passed away, because I don't know if we ever really got that. And now it's obviously too late. So my advice to you is, if there is someone in your life, even if they aren't sick, if they don't have cancer, whatever it is, a parent, a sister, whoever, your grandparents, try to spend as much time with them as you can, but not just time. Make it a fulfilling bond, and really just put your effort into it, because you never know when it's going to be too late. But on that same subject, I was thinking about something the other day, and this is kind of unrelated, but on the same topic, is I really wish I could bring my dad back for even just once a year for one day, just for him to see Clark, because he would be so proud, I think, of Clark Man. And it's tough. I'm going to move on from that topic before things get too rough here. So I'm going to go into, we're kind of go up to the present right now. I'm going to say 30 to 34 years old. I do have one more thing at 30 though. I put if YouTube worked out, quit your job and do it full time. It's what you love to do. You also gain 2 more years with Clark if you do it now. So I ended up quitting my job at 32, I think. Yeah. But if I would have done it at 30 when all this was happening and Clark was coming and YouTube was kicking off, hopefully the same way that it did then, I would have quit my job earlier and gained that extra time. Again, time is is something that's always going to come up. And I think it's a theme throughout this, as you'll see. So 30 to 34, this again is where time comes into play. This is my advice to my present self, myself yesterday, myself last year, myself even 2 years ago. Find balance in your life. I've told you guys this has been my biggest struggle and continues to be my biggest struggle, finding balance. I'm the type of person that has a very addictive personality, and when I do something, I go all in on it, as you can see on my YouTube channels. And I have a message here to myself. Don't neglect your family time because you think you have an obligation to your fans on YouTube. I really have over the years gotten into the place where I feel like I owe people something, and I feel like if I don't have that video out today, people are going to be let down. And in doing that, I feel like I've not only let myself down, but more importantly, I've let my family down. Like, the time that I spend on this is time that I should be spending with my family. I need to find a way, and I've been working on this, to compartmentalize this, where I make these videos during a certain time, and once Cody comes home, that's it. There's no more like me sneaking down to the studio, because it's very hard when you're self-employed and your business is beneath where you're living, just to walk down or come down or sneak away to try to get more done or do an extra thing and try to feed into all of that. It's not the right way. This is coming from a guy that had at one point 4 YouTube channels that he was running and trying to do live streams and stuff. As you guys can see, I've cut back on a lot of that, but I still have a great deal of work to do. And I guess my final message to myself to finish this part of it off and my story off on this is to realize what's most important. I've been thinking that YouTube is the most important thing in my life for a while. It hasn't been. It never was. It never will be. What is this going to be if I don't have anyone to share it with? What I've done here, to be completely honest with you, has caused a lot of stress in my life, in my marriage. It's caused stress for me. I feel overwhelmed a lot of the time with creating content like this at such a, I don't want to say a high level, but at such a drastic level. To make daily videos on almost 2 channels, maybe sometimes more, it's a lot. And I'm not complaining because I love to do this, but there's something else that I love more, and it's my family, and I need to make that a priority. So you may end up seeing fewer videos from me. I'm not making this as an excuse. It's just, I think most people could realize that, right? So it's my message to myself. No, don't forget what's important. And that's what it is. So there's my story. There's the advice that I give myself. Again, take advantage of the time that you have. Cherish relationships. Somehow know in the future what's going to be successful and do it early. That's a little bit harder, but there's some things that are in your power, in your control, that hopefully in listening to this, you can take this advice and maybe change your life a little bit if you need to. But I do want to get into what you guys thought. I have a community post that I did yesterday, and I made a list here. I actually hearted a whole bunch of these that I thought were fantastic. So I'm going to go into my community tab, and I want to read some of these to you. This is advice that you guys want to give yourself. So I'll go down through some of these. I think there's maybe 10 or so that I thought were really fantastic. So we're going to start with Blue Raccoon, who has the most upvoted one. It says, enjoy the moment because it'll all soon be, let me reread this. Blue Raccoon says, enjoy the moment because it will soon become a memory. So again, we're going back into appreciating what time you have, being in the moment. Don't let that moment go, because it's gone so quickly. So be in the now. And I think that's great advice, and I can see why that was so highly upvoted. Next, Jacob says, I would tell myself to accept more offers and take more chances. I've had multiple once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and looking back, I wish I would have accepted them. Yeah, it's another thing is don't hold back. What's that movie with Jim Carrey? Is it Yes Man? Where he starts saying yes to everything and his life becomes so much more fulfilling. That's great advice. I really appreciate you putting that out there. Next one is from Graphic Bricks, a longtime supporter here. It says, don't take things too seriously. I would always worry about small things in life that didn't matter. Don't sweat the small stuff. I think we all do that. I think we worry about things. What did I say before? I think we had a podcast where we were talking about this, and I said, I've worried about, this is a quote that I've heard. It said, I've worried about a lot of things in my life. Some of those things actually happened. So how many things do we worry about that don't happen? Just kind of let life go. Let things happen. And I think you'll find a lot more happiness when you're not stressed and worried about stuff. Next message comes from T-Fall Bricks, who says, I would say have more fun and enjoy time with friends and family. I would also say to laugh at myself more and be less serious. Finally, I would say keep enjoying being a kid and don't be afraid to show my love for Lego. And those are all things that I feel like that we relate to each other in this. I completely agree with everything you say there. Man, you guys really come through with some incredible, thoughtful stuff. I love doing this podcast. I get a lot of enjoyment out of this. This is very fulfilling for me. Next one is from Zach Holmes. Again, longtime supporter. Says, take more chances and focus more on you, which could be a double-edged sword. Focusing on you sometimes can work against you, but when you do focus on everyone else, you sometimes forget about yourself. So taking more chances I see as a common thing that's coming up here. Taking more offers and more chances. Tracy says, you are enough and you matter. That took me a long time to see. So that's, again, going back on focusing on you. You do matter. Everyone matters. And you can't live your life through other people. So focus on you. But don't become selfish. E.H. Brick says, don't think that what you want in life is simple to obtain. It's not. If you want to become something or do something with your life, you need to put a lot of work into it. And that's true. You need to focus on what you want to do. Things don't come easy. Like if you want something, I hope you listened to episode 2, which was about finding your passion. But if you are passionate about something, you already know this. You'll put everything you need to into getting that thing that you want, and it'll happen for you. So step 1, find your passion, and then put the work into achieving that. And I truly believe that you can do that, and I believe that you'll be successful. Next message comes from Bricktacular Bricks, who says, enjoy the small things in life, like playing with a pet or watching TV with a family member. Yeah, and it comes down to appreciating relationships, right? That's something that was heavy in mine, my relationship with my family, mine with my dad. Anybody that you love, make sure you cherish everything you can with them, because nothing's guaranteed. Chin says, take every opportunity that is presented with you. Again, more chances. No matter how big or small, for every move opens doors for you that you never knew could be opened. Wow, I didn't realize that was such a theme here, taking chances. I really like that. That really makes me think, what chances have I not taken in my life? Have I played things too simple? Sometimes we do, right? Sometimes we take the easy way when maybe sometimes taking the hard way is a lot harder. The flow of water, you go with the flow, or sometimes it's better to not, and you never know where you're going to end up. Ben C says, stop saying no. This again. I'm going places and doing things with friends because eventually they will stop asking you and won't be offered again. Never do anything you're not comfortable with, but sometimes life requires you to step outside your comfort zone to enjoy it. Bit of an oxymoron, I know, but true nonetheless. Yeah, that's kind of like what we're talking about. Just taking chances and opportunities when they come up. They may not seem like something you want to do, and if you're afraid of it, sometimes being afraid of something can actually be the thing that's best for you. We do have one more here. This is from O&O Productions, who says, don't worry about what others think. Have fun and enjoy yourself and the people you love. And that's a perfect way to end this. That is exactly what this whole episode is about. And if I had to sum it up, that would be it. Don't worry about what others think. Have fun and enjoy yourself and the people you love. What better advice? And on that, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening or watching the Missing Pieces podcast, episode 4. If you want to support this podcast, there's many ways you can do that. I saw some people had already left a review on Apple Podcasts. I checked that, and I thought that was really cool. We had like 7 ratings on there, all 5 stars. So, wow, thank you so much for that. What else can you do? If you want to really support us, you can become a Patreon member. I do exclusive videos there once a week or so where I talk about some of the things that's going on in the channel a little bit ahead of time, just to kind of tell you what's going on. $1 or more per month. If you got some appreciation out of this, or if you feel like this helps you in any way, that would be really cool. And yeah, I really appreciate that. There's links down below if you want to do anything for this. But the thing you could do the most for me is just to keep enjoying our content, keep watching, keep listening, and leave a comment on this. I really appreciate those. If you have any ideas for next week's episode, leave it down below. I love getting inspiration from you guys. This is an episode that would have never happened had I not gotten that question, and I really appreciate having that. So thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we will find you in the next Missing Pieces podcast. That's the outro.